welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or, I might show up at your door. I'm just here to share some creepy stories, so sit back and enjoy. Disclaimer: the content presented in the video is purely for entertainment purposes only. The theories and stories discussed in this video are speculative and are not supported by any evidence or proof. Viewer discretion is advised. I've always loved the night shift. The world feels different after midnight. Quieter, slower, like it's taking a breath. Working as a late-night radio DJ at WXRQ 103.5, I get to be the last voice people hear before they drift off to sleep. It's a weird little corner of the world, full of insomniacs, truckers, and the occasional lonely soul just looking for something to fill the silence. I never expected to be the last voice they heard. That night started like any other. The studio was dimly lit, the hum of old equipment filling the space as I leaned back in my chair, sipping my third cup of coffee. My playlist was lined up: some classic rock, a bit of jazz, and my usual round of midnight confessions, where listeners called in to spill their secrets into the void. I was halfway through a call with Benny from Oak Ridge, who was ranting about his cheating ex, when the first emergency alert hit. The screen on my console glitched, flickering to black before a deep, monotone voice cut in over the music. Emergency alert. This is not a test. Avoid the glow. Do not look at it. Do not approach it. The message repeated twice, and then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The music resumed, Benny still talking on the other end, completely unaware that anything had happened. I sat there, staring at my screen. That wasn't normal. I dealt with emergency alerts before, severe weather warnings, amber alerts, even the occasional system glitch. But this? No details, no agency name, just that vague, ominous message. I hesitated, then reached for the mic. Not sure what that was, folks. If that was a real alert, somebody seriously dropped the ball on the details. Avoid the glow? What does that even mean? I chuckled, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. If anyone out there has a clue, feel free to call in. I moved to switch to the next song, but before I could, my phone lines lit up. The first call came from Margot in Pine Hill, her voice tight with fear. "Did you see it?" she whispered. "I just got an alert on my phone." "Same thing. Avoid the glow." I frowned. "Yeah, I saw it. Looks like a system error. Maybe a messed up weather alert." "No," she said, voice trembling. I think it's real." A chill ran down my spine. "Why do you say that?" There was a long pause. Then, in a hushed voice, she said, "Because it's outside." The line cut out. I stared at my screen. The call had disconnected abruptly, like someone had just yanked the cord. I barely had time to process that when the next call came in immediately. Kevin from Westbrook, breathless. "Dude, something's happening." "What do you mean?" "I was out walking my dog," he said, "and I saw this light. It was coming from the trees near my neighborhood. I thought maybe it was a fire, but it wasn't flickering, just this solid glow. And then my phone got the alert." I sat up, every nerve in my body suddenly on high alert. "Did you get closer?" "Hell no." I grabbed my dog and ran back inside. But man, my neighbor, he went out to check it. He stepped right into that glow, and I swear to God, the call cut off. I stared at my screen. Another disconnect. This wasn't a coincidence. The uneasy feeling in my gut twisted into something sharper. I turned to check social media, pulling up local posts, and my stomach dropped. Everyone was talking about it. Posts were flooding in. Screenshots of the emergency alert, blurry pictures of a strange glow appearing in the distance, messages asking if anyone knew what was happening. Some people were joking, calling it a government psyop or some viral marketing stunt. But others were posting frantic messages, saying their family members had gone outside and never came back. I was about to go live and address it when the station lights flickered. For a split second, the power cut out completely, plunging me into darkness. My heart slammed against my ribs. I reached blindly for my phone, using the dim glow of the screen to illuminate the studio. Then, just as quickly, the lights came back. The computer screens flashed. Every single one of them. My playlist, my call log, my station controls, they all turned black, replaced by a single repeating message. Emergency alert. Avoid the glow. Stay in darkness. Do not attempt to leave. My breath caught in my throat. Then, my phone buzzed. A video link popped up from an unknown number. I hesitated, then tapped it. The screen filled with grainy footage, taken from what looked like a house security camera. The camera was aimed at a quiet suburban street, bathed in the dull orange glow of a street lamp. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, down the road, the light changed. A strange, pulsating glow crept into view, seeping through the cracks between houses, rolling over the pavement like a fog made of pure light. A man stepped out of his house. He must have seen it too, because he froze mid-step, staring. And then he moved toward it. I wanted to scream at the screen, "Don't go near it." But he didn't stop. He walked right into the glow, bathed in that eerie, pulsing light. And then he was gone. Not burned, not disintegrated. He just vanished. The glow rolled forward, reaching the security camera. The video feed glitched, static filling the screen. Then, just before the footage cut out, I saw something moving inside the glow. Not a person, not human, something else. The video ended, my phone screen going dark. My breath came in short, panicked gasps, and then the emergency alert interrupted my broadcast again. But this time, the voice was different. It wasn't robotic. It wasn't human. It was whispering my name. My name whispered through the speakers. Not the station ID. Not a glitch. Someone, or something, was saying my name through the emergency broadcast. I scrambled back in my chair, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The studio was silent except for the faint hiss of dead air. I didn't touch the mic, didn't press a single button, yet the whispering voice continued, threading itself through the static like it was searching for me. "You see it now." The words were barely above a murmur, crackling through the speakers like an old, half-erased cassette tape. The voice was layered, overlapping tones like multiple people speaking at once, their voices just slightly out of sync. I slammed my hand on the power button, killing the studio monitors. The whispering cut off immediately, leaving me in absolute silence. I took a shaky breath. I needed to get out of here. The phone lines lit up again. I hesitated. My instinct screamed to ignore it, to grab my keys and bolt, but my fingers moved on their own, hitting the button to answer. "Hello." My voice was hoarse. There was no response at first, just a faint crackling sound. Then, a woman's voice, low and trembling. "Please help me." I straightened in my chair. "Who is this?" "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "It's getting closer." I felt a prickle at the back of my neck. "Where are you?" A sharp intake of breath. Then, in a panicked rush, "I can't see my neighbors anymore. The houses are still there, but the lights are out and it's too quiet. I keep calling people, but no one picks up." The hairs on my arms stood up. "Stay inside. Don't go near any lights. Do you have candles? Flashlights?" "No." A horrible, stretched out silence filled the line. Then she said, "There's a glow under my door." Every nerve in my body locked up. "Don't open it," I said quickly. "Get away from the door. Go somewhere with no windows." Her breathing hitched. I could hear soft footsteps, the sound of fabric brushing against the phone as she moved. Then suddenly a bang, loud, violent, like something slamming against her door. She gasped sharply, and I heard her stumble backward. "Oh my God!" I gripped the desk. "What's happening?" Silence. Then, a soft humming noise filtered through the call. A low, vibrating sound, deep in the throat, like a person humming a song with no melody. The noise grew louder, spreading through the line like it was crawling toward me. And then, click, the call disconnected. I stared at the screen, my fingers cold and stiff around the console. She was gone. I felt sick, a sharp, twisting nausea in my stomach, like my body already knew something was very, very wrong. I pulled up Google Maps, checking for traffic updates in her area. Nothing. But when I switched to street-level view, half the town was dark. Not normal nighttime dark. Blackout dark. Entire neighborhoods blacked out like someone had taken an eraser to the map. I clicked on my weather app, no storms reported. No outages from the power company. Just empty silence. I reached for my phone to call the police, but the landline was dead. Then the emergency alert came back. Emergency alert. Avoid the glow. Stay in darkness. Do not attempt to leave. The words burned into the screen, pulsing with each repetition. My phone buzzed in my hand. New message. Unknown number. I tapped it open, my hands shaking. It was a photo. The street right outside the radio station, and in the distance, moving toward me, a soft, shimmering glow. I shoved my chair back, rushing to the window. The streets outside were empty. The usual glow of street lamps and neon signs had dimmed. Not flickered, not shut off, but dimmed, like they were being drained. And past the last visible buildings, further down the road, I saw it, a glow creeping closer. It wasn't like any light I'd ever seen. It wasn't white or yellow or even the blue-green of a neon sign. It was something else, a shifting, pulsing glow that looked like it wasn't even part of this world. It had depth, like it stretched further than it should, like I was staring through a keyhole into something vast and hungry. And inside it, shadows moved. I stumbled backward, knocking over my coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, but I barely heard it. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. I had to get out. I grabbed my car keys and bolted for the station door. The emergency lights in the hallway flickered, casting the shadows at odd angles. My footsteps echoed, too loud, like the building was suddenly much, much bigger than it had been a few minutes ago. I reached the exit, slammed my hand against the push bar. Nothing. The door wouldn't budge. I pushed again, harder, but it was like trying to shove a solid wall. The hinges didn't even rattle. I turned and ran for the back exit. The hallway felt longer, stretching impossibly ahead of me, but I reached the door and yanked it open. A wall of light. The glow was right there, shifting like liquid, moving toward me with slow, deliberate intent. I slammed the door shut, heart hammering. My skin felt hot, feverish, like I'd stood too close to an open flame. I pressed my forehead against the cold door, breathing hard. Then I heard it, a whisper, right behind me. You can't leave. The whisper was right behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance, my back slamming against the door. My breath came in ragged gasps as my eyes darted around the hallway. Nothing, just the dim, flickering emergency lights and the long, empty corridor stretching back toward the studio. But I heard it. I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't sleep-deprived or imagining things. Something had spoken to me, and worse, it knew I was trying to escape. I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to slow my breathing. Think. The front door wouldn't open. The back exit led to the glow. I was trapped inside the radio station. The walls felt smaller than they had before, like the building itself was closing in on me. I had to find another way out. I took a shaky step forward, then another. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with old office doors, most of them leading to storage closets or abandoned production rooms. The station had been running on a skeleton crew for years. Midnight shifts were mostly just me and the occasional engineer dropping by for maintenance. Tonight, though, I was alone. At least I hoped I was. I reached the main bullpen area, a cluttered space filled with old desks, unused equipment, and a fridge that hadn't been cleaned since 2019. The large window on the far side showed nothing but blackness. No streetlights, no headlights, just darkness. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to check the time, 3:12 a.m. How was it still so early? Felt like I'd been stuck in this nightmare for hours. Another buzz, a new text message, unknown number. I swallowed hard and opened it. It was a picture, the hallway I had just walked through, taken from behind me. I nearly dropped the phone. My stomach clenched, nausea rolling through me like a wave. No one else was here, No one had been here all night. I forced myself to turn around. The hallway was empty, but the emergency lights had dimmed, not flickered, dimmed, like something was draining them. I took a step backward, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. Then, at the very end of the hallway, a soft glow. It seeped in from the cracks under the door to Studio B. Not harsh, not blinding, just pulsing. A steady, slow rhythm, like the beat of a heart. I took another step back. My instincts screamed at me to run. Then the doorknob turned. The door opened, and something stepped out. It wasn't human. I couldn't see it clearly. The glow around it blurred its features, like a figure moving just beyond frosted glass. But it was tall, with limbs that were too long, and a head that tilted unnaturally as it turned toward me. The glow pulsed around it, casting faint shadows that didn't match its movements. And then it moved, not walked, shifted. 1 second it was at the end of the hall. The next it was closer. I stumbled backward, my shoulder slamming into the desk behind me. The creature tilted its head again, as if studying me. Then it hummed, a deep, vibrating sound that rattled in my chest. The same sound I had heard over the phone before the woman disappeared. My throat clenched. I couldn't move. The glow grew brighter. My skin felt hot, tingling like static electricity. I was going to vanish, just like the people outside, just like the woman on the phone. Then a voice, "Keep talking." It wasn't coming from the creature. It wasn't coming from my phone. It was the radio. I turned my head just enough to see the on-air light glowing from the studio. The mic was still live. I wasn't just broadcasting music anymore. I was broadcasting everything, and someone was listening. The creature stopped. Its entire body tensed, like it had just heard something it didn't like. I didn't hesitate. I lunged for the studio, nearly tripping over my own feet as I threw myself toward the door. The creature blurred forward, but the moment I crossed the threshold, it froze. The second I grabbed the mic, the glow around it dimmed. I didn't know why. I didn't care. I just started talking. "If anyone out there is listening, please tell me you can hear this. Something is happening. People are disappearing. The glow, don't go near it. It's alive. It's inside the station. I don't know what it wants, but it..." A low, garbled distortion rippled through the speakers. Then a second voice joined mine. "Keep talking." The same voice as before. I swallowed hard, gripping the desk. My pulse was racing. The creature stood in the doorway just outside the studio. Couldn't step inside. The radio was keeping it out, but I didn't know how long that would last. My phone buzzed again. I looked down. Another picture. The radio station, taken from outside. And beyond the windows, the glow was spreading. Outside the station, beyond the windows, the darkness of the town was vanishing, swallowed by that slow, pulsing light. It wasn't just growing. It was consuming. And the thing in the doorway, the glowing figure, was still standing there, still watching me, but it wouldn't come inside. Not as long as I kept broadcasting. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My fingers trembled against the mic, but I forced myself to keep talking. "I don't know what's happening. If you can hear me, please tell me you're out there. Call in. Send a message. Something. I don't know how much longer I can." The studio lights flickered. The signal warbled. I clamped a hand over my mouth, trying not to scream. The glow outside was pressing in, a living, breathing ocean of light, lapping at the edges of the building. It wanted inside, and my broadcast was the only thing keeping it out. I glanced at the soundboard. All systems still active. The signal meter flickered erratically, but I was still transmitting. As long as I could hold this frequency, I had a chance. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look. I did anyway. Another photo. The inside of the station. From behind me, I nearly dropped my phone. No. I twisted around. Nothing was there. The studio was empty except for me and the creature in the doorway. But that didn't make sense. Someone was taking these pictures. Someone was inside the building. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of static. "What do you want?" Another text came in. "Unknown number. Keep talking." I stared at the words, my skin prickling. I wasn't imagining it. Someone else was out there, listening, helping, or watching. I swallowed hard and turned back to the mic. If anyone can hear me, please. I need to know if you're still out there. The studio lights flickered again. Then a call. My breath hitched as the phone lines lit up. A single blinking light, an incoming call on line 1. I hesitated, staring at it. The last time I answered a call, a woman disappeared, but I needed to know. I reached out and pressed the button. Hello, silence, then breathing, not normal breathing. Shallow, ragged, wet, my pulse hammered. Who is this? Crackle. Then a whisper. Don't let it in. My stomach twisted. Who are you? Are you in the town? It sees you. Click. The line went dead. I ripped my headset off, my breath coming in sharp bursts. I felt like my body was shutting down, nerves on fire with some deep, primal instinct that screamed at me to run. Even though there was nowhere to go, the creature in the doorway hadn't moved, but something about it had changed. The glow around it was fading, not disappearing, weakening. Because of the broadcast, I gripped the desk, staring at the soundboard. I didn't understand what was happening, but I could put the pieces together. The signal was keeping it out. The signal was hurting it. I had to boost the transmission. I lunged for the controls, turning up the gain, pushing the broadcast power to max. The entire station rattled, the speakers hissing with raw audio. The creature twitched. A sound crawled out of it. Not a scream, not a word, but a deep, vibrating distortion that rattled my bones. And then I stepped back, just an inch, just a fraction. But I saw it. The glow around it pulsed erratically, like a dying light bulb. I turned back to the mic, gripping it with both hands. If anyone out there can hear this, do not go near the glow. Stay away from any light sources. The signal is keeping it out. If you have a radio, keep it on this frequency. Do not turn it off. Repeat, do not turn it off. The creature jerked again. Then it was gone. One moment it was standing there. The next, it was nothing but empty space. I exhaled sharply, nearly collapsing against the desk. The glow outside was still there, still creeping closer, but the thing in the doorway was gone. Had I pushed it back? Was the radio actually hurting it? My thoughts were cut short by a low vibration rattling the walls. The station shook. The lights flickered wildly, and then the signal cut out. Silence, not dead air. Nothing. My entire body locked up. The station had lost power. The glow outside swelled, surging forward as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. I whirled around, searching for anything, any way to get the station back online. Then I saw it, the backup generator switch. In the basement. I swallowed hard. The basement was pitch black, but I had no choice. The glow was coming, and if I didn't get the signal back up, I was next. The signal was dead, and the glow was coming. I stood frozen, my fingers gripping the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles turned white. The walls of the radio station shuddered, as if the whole building could feel the power drain. The glow outside wasn't just expanding anymore. It was pressing in, testing the station's defenses like a rising tide against a crumbling seawall. I didn't have minutes. I had seconds. I had to restore the signal. But the backup generator switch? It was in the basement. The air in my lungs felt too thick, too heavy, as I forced myself to move. My feet dragged across the floor, my body fighting every step toward the hallway. The last time I was near the basement, I heard something whisper behind me. What if it was still down there? What if it was waiting? I pushed the thought away. No time for fear. No time to hesitate. If I didn't get that generator running, the glow would swallow the station whole. The door to the basement loomed ahead. It was just a door, just a set of stairs, just pitch black nothingness leading down. I reached for the handle, hesitating only for a second before twisting it. The door creaked open, revealing a gaping void of darkness. The basement had no windows, no emergency lighting. With the power down, it was pure black. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, switching on the flashlight. The dim LED beam cut through the dark in small, weak patches, barely illuminating the old wooden stairs leading down. I swallowed hard. Then I stepped inside. The air in the basement was thick, stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Every step I took sent creaks echoing through the wooden beams, the sound too loud in the suffocating silence. My phone's light bobbed in my unsteady grip, sweeping across rusting metal shelves, old equipment, and forgotten junk that had been piling up since the early 2000s. The generator was at the back. Just get to the switch, get the power on, get out. I tightened my grip on my phone and kept moving. The deeper I went, the more wrong everything felt. It wasn't just the silence. It was the absence of something I couldn't name. The kind of emptiness that made my skin crawl, like I was stepping into a place I wasn't meant to be. I passed an old workbench, my light catching a stack of dusty cassette tapes scattered across the surface. My station used to run reel-to-reel recordings before switching to digital, but these looked older. The labels had dates, but no names. I kept walking. The generator switch was mounted on the far wall. My phone's light landed on it, a red lever bolted to a rusting electrical box. I exhaled sharply, relief flooding through me. I stepped forward, and my phone light flickered. I stopped cold. The air shifted. Something was behind me. I didn't turn around. Don't react. Don't move. But I could feel it. The air was heavier, colder. My own breath sounded too loud. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was holding something, watching. I clenched my jaw, forcing my feet forward. One step, then another. The floorboards behind me creaked. I lunged for the switch. My fingers closed around the handle, yanking it down with all my strength. The lever slammed into place, and the station shook as the generator roared to life. Light flooded the basement. I spun around and froze. The basement wasn't empty. Something was standing in the far corner, its back turned to me. It was tall, unnaturally thin, with limbs too long and fingers too sharp. Its skin was gray, stretched over its frame like withered leather. It didn't move, didn't react. It just stood there. The hum of the generator filled the space, but the air was still too quiet. The thing in the corner wasn't glowing like the one upstairs, but I knew it was the same. My breath hitched in my throat. The glow outside. Was this where it came from? Was this what it used to be? A single, cracking sound filled the silence. Its neck twisted, not its head. Its whole neck. The bones inside it snapped and crunched as it turned toward me without moving the rest of its body. Its face, no, it didn't have a face, just smooth, gray skin. And in the center of where its face should have been, a small, pulsing glow. It had been dormant. The power outage must have woken it up. I bolted. I tore up the stairs, hitting the door with enough force to nearly knock it off its hinges. I spun, slamming it shut, my chest heaving as I braced against it. The station was lit again. The glow outside had stopped creeping forward. The radio was broadcasting again. I had bought myself time, but downstairs, something was awake, and I had nowhere left to run. The power was back. The signal was live, but I wasn't safe. Not yet. I stood with my back against the basement door, my chest heaving. The station lights flickered overhead, their dull hum a welcome contrast to the silence I had just escaped. My fingers still burned from how hard I had gripped the generator switch. My legs trembled, barely keeping me upright. I forced my breath to slow, and it wasn't over, not even close, because something was still down there. I swallowed hard and pressed my ear against the basement door. Silence, then a soft tap, like fingernails against the wood. I reeled back, clamping a hand over my mouth to stifle the cry rising in my throat. My entire body locked up, every nerve screaming at me to run. But where? The only thing keeping that thing from getting out was this door and me standing in front of it. The glow outside was held back by the broadcast. But the thing in the basement, it wasn't affected. It wasn't like the others. I had to keep moving. I couldn't just stand here and wait for it to break through. I turned and sprinted back to the studio. The radio was still running, the signal steady. The soundboard glowed, meters bouncing as the emergency alert message looped on repeat. I had programmed it to keep broadcasting nonstop in case something happened to me. I wasn't sure if it was reaching anyone. I wasn't sure if there was anyone left to reach. I grabbed my mic and flipped it on, forcing my voice to steady. This is station KXRF, broadcasting on emergency frequency. If you can hear me, stay inside. Stay away from the glow. Keep your radios on this station. Do not go outside. I repeat, do not go outside. I hesitated, then I leaned in closer. If you're still listening, if you're still alive, call in. I sat back, staring at the blinking lights on the soundboard. Nothing, no calls, no messages. I was talking to no one, or to something else. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking as I checked my texts. The unknown number hadn't sent anything since that last message. Keep talking. What if I stopped? Would the glow break through? Would the thing in the basement come upstairs? My head swam. I had been running on adrenaline and fear for what felt like hours. But the truth was catching up to me. I was alone. I was trapped. And I didn't even know if I was still human. I had seen things that shouldn't exist. I had felt them pressing against the edges of my reality, warping everything I thought was real. Had I already changed? Was I just delaying the inevitable? A beep. My breath caught. An incoming message. I looked down at my phone. Another photo. This time, it was me, sitting in the radio booth, my back turned. Someone was inside the station. I whirled around, but the studio was empty. I grabbed the mic, my pulse slamming against my skull. Whoever you are, if you're in here, if you can hear me, talk to me. Please. Silence. Then another message. Unknown number. Don't turn around. I felt something shift behind me, a change in the air, like a new presence had settled into the space, just beyond my line of sight. The studio lights dimmed, just a little, just enough to make my shadow stretch longer than it should have. I wasn't alone anymore, but I couldn't move, couldn't look. Don't turn around. My fingers curled around the microphone. My voice shook. Why not? No response. I stared at the soundboard, at my own reflection in the dark screen of the dead computer monitor. There was no one behind me, no one, except the studio door was open, and I hadn't opened it. A wave of nausea rolled through me. I was losing time. I was changing, or something was changing me. I turned back to the mic, gripping it like a lifeline. If you're still out there, if you're still listening, you need to tell me. Please. I need to know I'm not alone. A beat of silence. Then the phone lines flickered. A single call. Line 1. My stomach nodded. The last 2 times I answered a call, something horrible happened. But this time I had no choice. I reached out, slowly, carefully, and pressed the button. Hello. Silence. Then a voice. Not whispering, not distorted. A real voice. Oh my God. You're alive. I nearly collapsed. It was a person. A real person. I gripped the mic with both hands. Who are you? Where are you? The voice was shaky, breathless. A man, mid-30s maybe, terrified. My name's, the line crackled. Jake. I don't know where I am. The signal warped, his voice breaking into static. The glow. His words distorted. It got inside. It's not just outside. It's in. The call cut out. Dead silence. The station lights flickered violently, and from the hallway, a soft creak. The basement door was opening. The basement door was open. I hadn't touched it. I stood frozen, my breath barely leaving my lungs. My eyes locked on the darkened hallway beyond the studio. I was not alone in the station. Something had come up from below. The emergency broadcast continued to play on autopilot, the robotic voice looping over and over. This is an emergency alert. Stay indoors. Avoid the glow. Do not attempt to leave your shelter. The soundboard flickered. The station lights dimmed, just slightly. Then, from the hallway, a soft scrape, like nails dragging across the floor. I took an instinctive step back. The glow outside had been held at bay by the signal, but the thing in the basement was something else. Something that had been here before the power went out, and now it was loose. A sharp tap 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 came from my phone. Another message. Unknown number. Don't speak. My stomach twisted. I looked back at the hallway. The darkness at the basement door was shifting. A shape crawled forward. It didn't move like a person. Not fully. Its limbs were wrong. Too long, too thin. The joints bent backward in places they shouldn't. The skin was stretched too tight over its bones. like something trying to fit inside a body that didn't belong to it. And its head, God, its head twisted toward me, but there was no face, just smooth, gray skin. And then the glow appeared, a faint blue pulse, right in the center of its featureless face, growing brighter with each breath I took. It was reacting to me. The glow outside had tried to consume me, but this thing, it was trying to understand me. Took a slow step forward. His fingers twitched. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. IT can hear you think. I clamped down on every thought racing through my head. I tried to make my mind silent. No fear, no panic, nothing. The glow in its face dimmed. It stopped moving. I took the chance and backed away, keeping my eyes locked on it, step by step. If I could just get to the door. A loud crack from outside. The glow outside flashed brighter, rippling across the glass walls of the station. The storm outside raged, electricity dancing through the fog like veins of living light. The thing in the hallway snapped its head toward the window, and then it moved, not toward me, but toward the glow. It stumbled past the studio, its head twitching, drawn to whatever was happening outside. It reached the window, raising one of its bony, clawed hands and placing it against the glass. The glow outside reacted. A pulse of energy surged through the fog, illuminating the sky for miles. And then the creature whispered. I didn't hear words. I didn't hear a voice. I heard echoes, voices that weren't my own. A flood of memories that didn't belong to me. People screaming, radios crackling, a town empty and silent. And one message repeated over and over and over. The glow is not the threat. I staggered back, my pulse hammered in my ears, my vision swimming. I grabbed onto the desk, trying to ground myself. The glow outside wasn't the threat? Then what the hell was? The creature at the window tilted its head. The glow in its face flickered, its body glitching, like it was struggling to hold its shape. I realized then it wasn't hunting me, it was warning me. I grabbed the microphone, swallowing hard. If anyone is still out there, I need you to listen carefully. The glow. I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if this was just another trap? But before I could finish my sentence, the radio signal cut out. Every speaker in the station went dead. The power didn't shut off. The station was still lit, but the broadcast had stopped. I frantically turned back to the console, flipping every switch I could. Static hissed through the speakers, but the emergency alert, asterisk asterisk my voice, asterisk asterisk was gone. The signal had been hijacked. A new sound crackled through the speakers. Not my voice, something else. A whispering chorus, soft, faint, and then one voice, clear as day, speaking directly through the radio. You are speaking to the wrong side. A sharp bang sounded from outside. I whirled around and froze. The fog had parted, just for a second, and beyond it, through the shifting waves of glow, I saw figures, dozens, maybe hundreds, standing in the storm, watching me, waiting. The creature inside the station tensed. This glow flickered wildly. I knew then something was about to break through, and I was right in the middle of it. The figures in the fog weren't moving. They just stood there, their forms barely distinguishable through the shifting glow. Watching, waiting. Inside the station, the creature with the featureless face had gone completely still. Its glow flickered erratically, like it was short-circuiting. Its entire body twitched in small, unnatural spasms, as if caught in a battle with itself. And the radio was speaking, not with my voice, not with the emergency alert. Something else had taken over. A low, warped chorus whispered from the speakers, distorting and crackling with interference. I couldn't make out words at first, just overlapping echoes of voices, layered on top of each other. Then one voice emerged, clear. You are speaking to the wrong side. The words stabbed through me. I clenched my hands into fists, fighting to keep my thoughts steady. The wrong side, the wrong side. I turned back toward the soundboard, my pulse hammering. My entire body felt wrong, like I wasn't fully inside myself anymore, like something was pressing against me, peeling apart the layers of my mind, pulling me toward. No, I shook my head, squeezing my eyes shut. I had to focus. The glow outside, the creature inside the station. The voices on the radio. What was I missing? I reached for the mic with trembling fingers and flipped the broadcast switch back on. Who are you? My voice cracked over the speakers, but I forced myself to keep talking. What do you mean, the wrong side? Silence. Then, you were never meant to speak. The whisper crawled through my ears, soft and sharp at the same time. A flicker of movement from the window. The figures in the glow had shifted. They were closer now. The glow wasn't just surrounding them, it was coming from them, pulsing beneath their skin. I had seen that glow before, in the basement, in the thing that had come crawling out of the dark. I turned to look at the creature inside the station. It was still at the window, its two long fingers pressed against the glass. It wasn't watching me anymore, it was watching them. I took a slow step toward it, every instinct screaming at me to run the other way. But I needed answers. If I was going to survive this, I needed to know what the hell was happening. The creature twitched, sensing my movement. Then, without turning, it spoke. Not out loud, inside my head. You have been used. A cold chill rippled down my spine. The voice wasn't human. It was a layered echo, like multiple voices speaking at once. Too many to count, all whispering the same words in unison. I swallowed hard. Used by who? The creature finally turned its head toward me. The glow in its face dimmed, flickering weakly, as if struggling to stay lit. Then it spoke again, this time out loud. Its voice was distorted, warping between tones. 1 second deep, the next sharp and hollow. Not who. Took a slow, deliberate step toward me. What? The glow outside flared. I flinched as the figures in the fog took another step closer, their outlines becoming clearer. I could see faces now, or at least what had once been faces. Their skin was translucent, the glow pulsing just beneath the surface, illuminating the shapes of bones and veins. Their eyes, if they had them, were nothing more than dark, empty sockets. They had been people once. Now they were something else. The whispers in the radio grew louder. Not words anymore, just a dull hum, vibrating in the air, burrowing into my skull like an invisible pressure. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to stay focused. What do they want? I asked the creature, his featureless head tilted. For a moment, I thought it wouldn't answer. Then softly, to finish what they started, the glow outside flashed. A deep, electric boom rattled through the sky, shaking the station walls. I stumbled, grabbing onto the desk for balance. The figures in the fog had stopped moving, standing perfectly still, their empty faces turned toward me, waiting. My chest tightened. They weren't attacking, not yet. They were waiting for something, for me to do something. I turned back to the creature. It was still watching me, its glow flickering like a dying light. I could feel it then. It was weak. Whatever had happened to it, whatever had brought it here, it was failing. And I was the reason why. I had turned the signal back on. I had kept talking. I had been feeding the broadcast, and something out there had been using me to spread it. I clenched my fists. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the broadcast switch, and I turned it off. The radio went silent. The emergency alert stopped. The whispers in the speakers vanished. For the first time in hours, the station was completely, utterly quiet. And then the glow changed. The figures outside shuddered, their bodies twitching violently. The glow beneath their skin flashed brighter, like something inside them was fighting back. The creature in the station let out a low, shuddering breath. And then the glow in its face went out. Its body collapsed, hitting the floor with a sickening crack. I staggered back, my pulse slamming in my ears. Outside, the figures in the fog were changing too. The glow inside them was shrinking, their bodies flickering like a dying signal. And then, one by one, they started to fall. They were falling, all of them. The figures outside collapsed one by one, their glowing forms flickering like dying bulbs. The fog around them pulsed violently, surging in waves of unstable light before fading, as if something was finally letting go. Inside the station, the creature that had crawled out of the basement lay motionless on the floor. The glow in its face had completely gone out, and the silence, the silence was deafening. For the first time since this nightmare began, there was no signal, no static, no voices, just an overwhelming, hollow quiet. I sucked in a shaky breath, gripping the edge of the console to keep myself steady. What had I just done? Had I saved us? Or had I just killed whatever was keeping the real threat away? I turned back toward the window. The storm outside was still raging, but the glow wasn't spreading anymore. It was receding, rolling back like a tide. And the figures, they weren't just falling, they were disintegrating. Their bodies flickered, unraveling at the edges, like they were made of nothing but light and static. Their forms broke apart, dissolving into the air, until there was nothing left but the faint, lingering traces of their glow. I swallowed hard. It wasn't natural. It wasn't like a body dying. It was like something undoing itself, like they had never been real to begin with. I stared in stunned silence, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. Then, a noise behind me. I whirled around. The creature on the floor twitched. My chest clenched. I backed up fast, my heart slamming in my ribs. Its limbs spasmed, fingers curling and uncurling. Then slowly it pushed itself up. The glow in its face was gone, but it was still alive, and it was looking at me. For the first time since I'd seen it, I could tell it was afraid. It struggled to stand, its body glitching, like something was trying to force it to stay down. And then it spoke, not in my head, not in that strange, layered whisper, but in a real human voice, soft, weak, like someone trying to wake up from a nightmare. "They're not gone." The words punched through me. I froze. What? Its body shuddered violently, barely holding itself together, turned its head toward the radio. Then, in a rasping, desperate whisper, "You turned off the wrong signal." The words slammed into me like a gut punch. The wrong signal. I looked at the broadcast controls, my pulse pounding. No, I had shut it down. I had cut the transmission. Hadn't I? The station was silent. The glow was fading. The figures were gone. But then, the radio crackled. My blood ran cold. A sharp burst of static cut through the dead air. I snapped my head toward the speakers, my entire body locking up. The signal was coming back, and this time, it wasn't mine. The studio lights flickered. A deep, droning hum pulsed through the air, so low I could feel it in my bones. The screens on the console flickered violently, symbols flashing across them in jagged distortions. I stepped back fast, my entire body screaming with alarm. The creature in the station let out a strangled breath, shaking its head weakly. Then it looked at me. Its voice was barely audible now. "You don't understand." The humming grew louder. The glass windows shook in their frames. I staggered from the force of it, gripping the desk. Then the radio spoke again, not in a whisper, not in static, in a voice I knew, a voice I had heard for hours, my own. "This is an emergency alert." I stopped breathing. No, that wasn't me, but it was my voice. The transmission continued, playing back my words exactly how I had spoken them. "This is an emergency alert. Stay indoors. Avoid the glow." The creature in the studio let out a weak, shuddering breath. It wasn't keeping them out, it whispered. I tore my gaze from the radio, my mind spinning. What? His body twitched, barely staying upright. The broadcast wasn't a warning. The humming deepened, the lights dimmed, and then the glow returned. Not from outside, not from the storm, from inside the station. A cold wave of realization hit me. The broadcast wasn't keeping the glow away. It was keeping it alive. I had thought turning it off had stopped it, but all I had done was let it reset. The creature trembled, its form flickering at the edges like a glitching signal. Its voice shook with desperation. "It doesn't need to spread." Its head snapped toward the radio, its glowless face twisting in fear. "It's already inside." A sharp bang rattled the station. I spun toward the window and felt my heart drop. The glow outside was gone. The storm had vanished, but the sky was wrong. The clouds had turned a deep, pulsing blue, and hanging in the air, above the empty, lifeless town, was a massive, shifting form, a shape that wasn't human, a shape that wasn't anything. And the radio was still playing. "This is an emergency alert." The glow inside the station flared to life, and I finally understood. It had never been about getting in. It had been waiting for the right moment to get out. It was everywhere. The glow, it wasn't just in the fog anymore. It wasn't just in the sky. It was inside the station, breathing in the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. And now I realized it wasn't just a signal, it was a presence. I stumbled back, my breath coming too fast. The creature, no, whatever it had been, was gone. Its body had disintegrated along with the figures outside. But the glow, it was still here, still alive. I could feel it pressing in on me, scraping the edges of my mind. The radio crackled again. A voice, not mine, not the emergency alert. This one was different, low, deep. It's time to finish this. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I turned toward the radio, my pulse racing. The room was so still, so silent, except for the hum of the air, the slow pulse of the glow seeping through the walls. The station had become a trap, a cage. The signal wasn't something I could stop. It was inside now. It was a part of everything. I ran to the window, desperate for something outside to make sense of all of this. But there was no escaping it. The shifting mass in the sky was growing, expanding, pulling the clouds closer, twisting the very fabric of the atmosphere. It was getting closer. The storm was nothing, the true form was coming. The air inside the station turned cold, like a winter chill had wrapped itself around my chest. The glow, it was everywhere now, but it was still contained, just barely, confined to the room by some invisible boundary. I wasn't sure how long that would last. The hum in the air intensified. The radio, distorted, crackling, played again. It was always meant to be. The voice wasn't mine anymore. It wasn't human. It was the thing in the sky, the thing that had been watching us. Waiting, I backed away from the window, my heart hammering in my chest. Then, the door, a soft knock. I froze. The knock echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls, reverberating in my skull. It wasn't coming from the outside, it was coming from inside. The door was already slightly ajar. There was nothing there when I looked. No figures, no creatures. But I could feel it, the pressure was building. The presence was pushing against the door, waiting to break through. It's here. I reached for the desk, trying to steady my hands, my thoughts. The last bit of sanity I had left was slipping through my fingers. The radio crackled again, a sharp burst of static. You should have never turned it off. I swallowed, the words sending an icy shiver through me. I hadn't turned it off, had I? The signal, it wasn't just a warning. It was a link, a tether that had connected us to something far beyond what I could understand. The moment I had tried to shut it down, I had only weakened it. But now it was fully awake, fully here. The glow surged, flooding the room. It filled my vision, pulling at the edges of reality, bending the light, stretching the shadows. I could feel it getting closer, like the air was turning to static, warping the space around me. The radio, the only sound in the room now, flickered once more. This is the final transmission. I dropped to my knees, the floor beneath me shifting, as if the room was warping into something else entirely. Outside the window, the mass in the sky was no longer flickering. It was solidifying, a vast shape made of pure, shifting light, forming into something incomprehensible. The faint outlines of figures, not human anymore, but something else, cloaked in the glow, began to appear within the light. I couldn't stop staring, and then a loud, sharp crack. The door flew open. I turned, barely able to react before the first figure stepped through. The thing wasn't human. It was like the figures I'd seen outside, made of light, but it was solid too. A shifting form, its body radiating with that strange, pulsating glow. The face was a blur of light, just a hollow, distorted mass of energy with eyes, if they could even be called eyes, glowing brightly in the center. It reached out toward me, its fingers stretching, elongating. I felt its presence before I saw it, the pull, the weight of it. Its voice, if you could even call it a voice, whispered in a language I couldn't understand. It didn't need to speak. I knew it had been waiting for me, waiting for this moment. And I had done it. I had given it exactly what it needed. I breathed in, a last, desperate breath, and then, without warning, the room exploded into a surge of light. The last thing I saw before everything went white was the glow. The glow, pushing out from the radio, from the walls, from everything around me. The The light consumed me. There was no sound anymore. No static, just the quiet that was now the only thing left.